Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I want to talk to you today about a powerful truth that I've seen in many lives, and I believe is going to speak directly to someone here. Patience in isolation leads to divine restoration. You know, life doesn't always go according to our plans. Sometimes we find ourselves in seasons where it feels like nothing is moving, like we've been put on the shelf and we're just waiting. It's easy in those moments to think something's gone wrong. But here's the good news: isolation is not a punishment. It may feel like you're in a holding pattern, but the truth is you are being prepared. This season is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of a new chapter. It's in those quiet, isolated moments that God is doing some of His best work. He's shaping you, refining you, and strengthening you for something that's coming. If we're honest, we can't always see the progress when we're in the waiting season. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean God isn't working. The seeds He's planting in your heart today will blossom into the restoration you've been praying for. The great heroes of faith, Abraham, Moses, David, spent years in isolation and waiting in seasons that didn't make sense to them at the time. But they learned that isolation was not a punishment, it was a setup for divine restoration. They learned to trust God in the wilderness, and when the time came, they were prepared for the destiny He had for them. The key is patience. Patience doesn't mean you're doing nothing. Patience is an act of faith. It's saying, God, I trust that even though I don't see it, you're working. I trust that this season will not last forever. I believe you're preparing me for something bigger. That kind of trust leads to divine restoration. And let me tell you, God works behind the scenes. You may not see it now, but while you're waiting, He's moving. He's aligning things in your favor, opening doors, connecting the right people, and preparing your heart for the next season. You're not just waiting for your situation to change, you're waiting for God's timing, and His timing is always perfect. I know it's hard sometimes. It's easy to become frustrated when it feels like things are stagnant. But remember this, God is not ignoring you, He's refining you. He's building your character, your strength, and your faith. He's growing you into the person who can handle the blessings that are coming your way. Even though you may feel alone, you are never truly alone. God is right there with you. His presence is your peace, your comfort, your strength. And He's working in ways that you can't see, preparing you for a future filled with promise. The waiting season, the isolation you may be feeling is not wasted. It's in those dark moments that your faith is sharpened. It's in those times that you develop a deep, unwavering trust in God. And when the light breaks through, when the restoration comes, you'll realize that you were being prepared for something greater than you ever imagined. So today I encourage you to hold on. Your restoration is coming. The patience you're showing in this season will lead you to new opportunities. God will open doors that no one can shut. He'll restore what was lost, and He'll bless you with more than you could have ever asked for. Remember, patience in isolation leads to divine restoration. Trust the process, trust the timing, and know that God has something amazing ahead for you. Patience is one of the most powerful qualities we can develop in life, yet it's also one of the hardest to master. In a world that celebrates instant gratification, where everything seems to move at lightning speed, patience often feels counterintuitive. But there is something truly transformative about learning to wait and trust the process, especially in seasons when things are unclear or stagnant. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about waiting with a heart of faith, trusting that even in the silence and stillness, something profound is happening beneath the surface. Patience is not passive. It's an active form of faith, a deep belief that God is at work, even when we can't see it, feel it, or understand it. So many of us want quick results, quick answers, quick change. When life doesn't go according to our plans, it's easy to get frustrated or impatient. But I've learned that it's in those very moments of waiting, those moments when everything seems uncertain, that God is doing some of His most powerful work. In the book of James, we're told that patience leads to spiritual maturity. It helps us grow and develop in ways that we couldn't if everything happened immediately. There's a deep, quiet strength that comes from learning to wait without becoming bitter, angry, or discouraged. This kind of patience teaches us resilience. It shows us that even in the midst of uncertainty, we can still stand firm, hold onto our faith, and trust that God is still on the throne. When we wait with patience, we position ourselves to receive what God has for us in His perfect timing. You may feel like you're in a holding pattern, like you're not moving forward, and the waiting seems endless. But I want you to know that in the waiting, God is working. It's in those quiet, isolated moments when He's preparing your heart, building your strength, and shaping you into the person you need to be to step into the blessing He has in store for you. Patience isn't about doing nothing. It's about trusting God when you can't see what's ahead. Think about the great heroes of faith. Abraham waited years for the promise of a son. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before he ever led the Israelites out of Egypt. David was anointed to be king as a young man, but he spent years on the run, hiding in caves before he ever took the throne. Each of these individuals had to endure a period of waiting, and during that time, God was doing a deep work in them. Their patience allowed them to become who they needed to be to handle the incredible responsibilities and blessings that were coming their way. Patience teaches us that we don't have to have all the answers right now. We don't have to have everything figured out. We can rest in the knowledge that God knows exactly where we are, and He knows exactly what we need. The Bible says that God's ways are higher than our ways, and His timing is perfect. What may seem like a delay in your life is often just God setting everything up for your favor. He's aligning circumstances, opening doors, and bringing people into your life who will help you fulfill your purpose. So don't let impatience rob you of the blessings God is preparing for you. Trust that what you're waiting for is worth the wait. Trust that even in those quiet, isolated seasons, God is working in your life. Patience is not just about enduring the wait. It's about embracing it with the confidence that something greater is coming. As you wait, your character is being refined. Your faith is growing stronger. And when the time comes for your breakthrough, you'll realize that the waiting wasn't in vain. It was an essential part of the process that made you ready for all that God has planned for you. Patience allows us to rest in God's peace, knowing that everything will unfold in its own time. When we learn to wait with faith, we tap into a power that is greater than our own. We surrender control, we trust God's plan, and we open ourselves up to the amazing things He has in store. Patience is not about simply holding on through difficult times. It's about holding on with a heart of expectation, knowing that something beautiful is coming into your life. The power of patience is the power to wait in peace, knowing that the best is yet to come. Isolation is one of those experiences that many of us dread. Whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual isolation, the sense of being alone can feel like a punishment, a setback, or even a form of failure. We often associate isolation with rejection, abandonment, or a loss of connection. In a world where we're constantly encouraged to stay busy, be social, and keep moving forward, isolation can feel like being sidelined or forgotten. But what if isolation isn't a punishment at all? What if it's a necessary part of the process that God uses to prepare us for something greater? When we find ourselves in seasons of isolation, it's easy to think we've done something wrong or that God is punishing us. We might even ask, why me, or what did I do to deserve this? But the truth is that isolation is not a punishment. It can be a divine setup, a space where God can work in us in ways He can't when we're surrounded by distractions or other voices. Sometimes we need to be removed from the noise, the expectations, and the demands of everyday life so we can hear God more clearly and focus on the things that really matter. Throughout the Bible, we see examples of people who experienced isolation not as a punishment, but as preparation for their greater purpose. Think of Moses, who spent 40 years in the wilderness. It wasn't because he had done something wrong. It was because God needed to prepare him for the monumental task of leading the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses was in isolation for a long time, but it was in that desert, away from the crowds and the comforts of his old life, that God shaped his character and deepened his faith. It was in isolation that Moses received the call to lead a nation. Consider David, who was anointed as king at a young age, but spent years running for his life in caves and wildernesses before he ever sat on the throne. He wasn't being punished, he was being molded. David's time in isolation wasn't wasted. It was a time when God built the inner strength, patience, and humility that would later serve him as king. Isolation was his preparation, not his punishment. And when the time came, he was ready for the responsibility that came with his destiny. Isolation then is not a sign of failure or divine disfavor. It is often a time of divine recalibration where God sets the stage for something new, something better. It is during times of solitude that we are often able to confront the things within us that need healing or refining. In our busy, noisy lives, it's easy to overlook those internal issues, but when we're isolated, those issues can come to the surface, giving us the chance to deal with them in a healthy way. Isolation also gives us the opportunity to reconnect with God in a deeper, more personal way. Without the distractions of the world, we can truly seek God's voice, find His direction, and experience His peace. We can take the time to rebuild our relationship with Him, to pray, to meditate, and to hear from Him in ways that might have been impossible in the rush of everyday life. God often uses these quiet moments to reveal His plans, to strengthen our faith, and to give us the clarity we need to move forward. If you're feeling isolated right now, I want you to take heart. Understand that this season is not the end of your story. It's not a punishment, it's a preparation. God is at work in your life in ways you may not yet see, but trust that this time of solitude is making you ready for the next season of blessing and breakthrough. Isolation is often where God works His deepest and most lasting transformation in us. Don't resist it. Embrace it. It's not a punishment, it's a divine setup. When you emerge from this season, you will be stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the incredible things that God has ahead for you. Waiting is a part of life that none of us can avoid, yet it is often one of the most challenging and uncomfortable experiences we face. Whether we're waiting for a breakthrough, for answers to prayers, or for circumstances to change, waiting can sometimes feel like we're stuck in a holding pattern. We live in a world that prizes speed and efficiency, where waiting is seen as inefficient or even frustrating. But what if I told you that waiting isn't a wasted time at all? What if, in those moments when everything feels stalled, there is actually hidden power being activated in your life? The hidden power of waiting lies in its ability to shape us, refine us, and prepare us for what's ahead. Waiting isn't passive. It isn't about just sitting around doing nothing and hoping things will eventually improve. True waiting is an active process that demands faith, patience, and trust. In fact, some of the most profound growth happens during times of waiting. While it may seem like we're not moving forward, God is often doing something deep within us that can't be rushed. The power of waiting is not in the external results we're hoping for, but in the transformation that occurs inside us during the process. Think about the example of a seed. A seed doesn't just appear as a fully grown tree. At first, it has to go through a period of dormancy and growth beneath the soil. In that dark, hidden place, roots are developing and the foundation is being laid for the tree that will eventually emerge. If we were to dig up that seed and try to rush its growth, we'd destroy the very thing that's meant to flourish. Similarly, in our lives, the waiting period is like the seed's time in the ground. We can't always see it, but something powerful is taking place beneath the surface. The hidden power of waiting also comes in the form of strengthening our faith. When we wait on God, we're choosing to trust that His timing is perfect, even when we can't see the full picture. We may feel uncertain or impatient, but the act of waiting reminds us that we don't control everything. God's plans for our lives are far greater than what we can imagine, and His timing is always right. When we choose to wait patiently, we are exercising our trust in God's sovereignty. This is the kind of faith that doesn't give up when things aren't going as planned, but stays steadfast, knowing that God is working behind the scenes, and in the process, our faith grows stronger. Waiting also teaches us to embrace the present moment rather than constantly focusing on the future. It's easy to get fixated on what we want to happen, on the things we're hoping for, but the hidden power of waiting is in learning to live fully in the now. The Bible tells us that we should seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, not tomorrow's blessings or next week's breakthroughs. God wants us to find contentment and joy in the present, even while we're waiting for what's to come. Waiting is an opportunity to slow down, to recalibrate, and to focus on the things that matter most: our relationships, our growth, and our connection with God. Another aspect of the hidden power of waiting is the development of perseverance. The Bible talks about how perseverance produces character, and character, hope, when we wait patiently, when we continue to press forward, even when we don't see immediate results, we build resilience. Waiting teaches us that we can endure difficult seasons and still keep our eyes on the prize. In these moments, we learn to not be discouraged by the passage of time, but to trust that every moment is working together for our good. It's also important to recognize that the power of waiting is often tied to the concept of divine preparation. Many of the blessings and breakthroughs we're hoping for are not just about timing, they're about preparation. If we receive something before we're truly ready for it, we might not be able to handle it or appreciate it as we should. During times of waiting, God is often preparing us in ways we don't fully understand. He's building our character, refining our skills, and making sure that we are ready to step into the future He has planned for us. So if you find yourself in a season of waiting right now, I want to encourage you, don't view this time as wasted. Embrace the hidden power of waiting. Trust that God is at work in ways you can't see, and believe that what's happening beneath the surface is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Waiting doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means that God is doing something powerful inside you. The power of waiting is the power of transformation. It's the power of faith, patience, perseverance, and preparation. And when the right time comes, you'll see that every moment of waiting was worth it. The wilderness is often depicted as a harsh and unforgiving place, a place where survival is a struggle, and comfort is a distant memory. Yet throughout history and in the lives of many people of faith, the wilderness has also been a place of profound transformation, growth, and discovery. It's in the wilderness, far from the distractions of daily life, that many of life's most important lessons are learned. While the wilderness may feel like an uninvited season of hardship or trial, it holds valuable lessons that can shape us in ways that no easy, comfortable season ever could. One of the most significant lessons learned in the wilderness is the lesson of dependence. When everything is stripped away, when we no longer have the things we rely on for security, when our plans are disrupted and our resources run low, we are forced to depend on God in ways we never had to before. In times of abundance, it's easy to forget just how much we need God. But in the wilderness, there's no denying our need for His provision, His strength, and His direction. Just like the Israelites in the desert, when they wandered for 40 years, God provided for them daily. They had to rely on Him for food, water, and guidance. The wilderness teaches us to recognize that we don't have everything within our own power. We are not self-sufficient. We are dependent on God's grace and provision. Another powerful lesson from the wilderness is the development of patience. In the wilderness, there's often little instant gratification. Things don't happen as quickly as we want, and progress can seem slow or even non-existent. Yet this slow pace has the ability to build patience in us, teaching us that God's timing is far superior to our own. The Israelites had to wait 40 years in the wilderness before entering the promised land. That's an entire generation. During that time, they learned the hard way that God's promises were not a matter of when we think it should happen, but of trusting in His timing. Similarly, when we find ourselves in our own wilderness seasons, it is a reminder to trust God's process. He is not in a hurry, and neither should we be. Patience is often the fruit of waiting, of knowing that though we may not see it now, God is preparing something beautiful for us. The wilderness also teaches us the lesson of perseverance. There are times when life feels like a series of obstacles, challenges, and setbacks. The wilderness can feel like an endless cycle of struggle with no clear end in sight. Yet it's in this difficult terrain that we develop the stamina to keep going, even when we feel like giving up. The Bible reminds us that perseverance produces character, and character, hope. Those who make it through the wilderness aren't the ones who quit when things get hard. They are the ones who keep going, step by step, trusting that there's something on the other side of the struggle. The wilderness doesn't break us, it builds us, teaching us to endure and to trust in the strength that God provides to make it through. In the wilderness, we also discover what truly matters. The distractions of daily life are removed, and we are left with only the essentials: faith, hope, and love. Without the noise and busyness of life, we're forced to look inward and evaluate what we truly value. The wilderness has a way of stripping away all the excess, revealing what is most important. In this place, we often reconnect with God in a deeper, more intimate way. We discover that our relationship with Him is the one constant that holds us together when everything else feels uncertain. This is a time to refocus, realign, and rediscover our purpose. When the wilderness is over, we emerge with a clearer understanding of who we are and what we are meant to do. Perhaps one of the most important lessons learned in the wilderness is that of trust. When we're walking through a season of difficulty or uncertainty, it can be hard to see the way forward. The path is unclear, and we often don't know what God is doing behind the scenes. Yet the wilderness teaches us that trusting God is the only way through. Trust doesn't mean having all the answers. It means holding on to His promises even when we can't see the outcome. Trust means believing that God has a purpose for this season, that He is using it to shape us, refine us, and prepare us for something greater ahead. When we come out of the wilderness, we are different. We are stronger, wiser, and more in tune with God's voice. The wilderness is not an end, it is a process. It is where we learn lessons that will stay with us for the rest of our lives. And while it may feel long and difficult at times, we can take heart in knowing that the wilderness is not wasted. Every struggle, every moment of waiting, every challenge faced in the wilderness is shaping us into the people God has called us to be. Through the wilderness, we learn to depend on God, to be patient, to persevere, to find what truly matters, and to trust in His plan. Ultimately, the wilderness is not a place of defeat, but a place of preparation for the next season of our journey. We often hear the phrase, God works in mysterious ways, and there's truth in that sentiment, especially when we consider how God operates in our lives. We live in a world that celebrates instant results and visible progress, where everything seems to need to be seen to be believed. But what if I told you that some of the most significant work that God does in our lives is the work that we can't see? What if I told you that even in the moments when we feel nothing is happening, God is still at work, orchestrating circumstances, aligning people, and preparing us for a future that's greater than we could ever imagine? God works behind the scenes in ways that often go unnoticed at first, but His presence and His plan are always moving in the background. There are seasons in life when it feels like nothing is happening, when it seems like we're stuck, or when we wonder if God has forgotten us. But the truth is that even in those moments of waiting, uncertainty, or frustration, God is actively working. Sometimes His greatest work is done in the quiet places, in the hidden parts of our lives where we cannot see or fully understand what He is doing. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned for years. On the surface, it seemed like his life was falling apart. But even in those dark and seemingly hopeless moments, God was working behind the scenes. Every trial Joseph faced, every setback was setting the stage for his future. In prison, Joseph interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, and later that act would lead to his own rise to power. He eventually became second in command in Egypt and was used by God to save not only Egypt, but also his own family from a devastating famine. Joseph couldn't see it at the time, but God was orchestrating every detail of his life, even in the moments of pain and injustice. What seemed like a series of unfortunate events was actually God's plan unfolding, leading Joseph to a place where he could fulfill his purpose. God's behind-the-scenes work is not just limited to grand biblical stories. It happens in the lives of ordinary people like you and me. Think about the times when you faced challenges and in the moment you couldn't understand why you were going through them. You may have prayed for a door to open for a solution to your problem or for an answer to your question, but nothing seemed to change. What you didn't see was that God was preparing something greater for you. He was working in the background, behind the scenes, orchestrating the timing of events, opening doors at just the right moment, and positioning you in the place where you needed to be. Thanks for watching.